So we have our adding a movie working correctly. It saves the information to the database. It doesn't provide any feedback. Once I click save, unless I'm looking at the JavaScript console, I don't know that anything happened. So we want to address that. And the other thing we want to work on is, right now I'm looking at /admin/movie/0. But if I'm looking at /1, for example, it does in fact populate this form with the correct information. But when I click save, it's actually going to save that as a new movie in the database. And we need to modify our handler so that it updates the movie in the database. So that's a couple of things we want to take care of. And let's get started on those. So right now, I'm going to switch back to my IDE, and I will find my back-end code, which is right there. Okay? And my application is running, so I'm going to stop that. And I'll hide this. And right here, in the handler, edit movie, I'm just going to make a little change right now, just to give us something to work with, okay, without changing our database a lot. So I'm going to add an if statement here. If movie.id is equal to 0, then I'll insert the movie. Otherwise, for right now, I'm not going to do anything. Okay, so let me format this. That looks right. So that's the one change I'm going to make at the moment. So let me start the application again. So if I hide this and go back to my web browser and click save right now, it shouldn't save a second copy of the Shawshank Redemption. Okay, so it finished. Let's go to movies, and we only have one Shawshank Redemption, which is great. So let's go back and look at that one again. One. So that's showing us the Shawshank Redemption. So what I want to do right now, before we update things in the database, let's figure out how we can provide some feedback to the user. And we'll get rid of this, because we don't need this here anymore. So let's go back to our IDE and find our front-end code, which is right here. Okay, so I'm going to hide my terminal window, and I'm going to go to editmovie.js. And at the very bottom, I'll find that part where it's writing this stuff. I'm going to get rid of this and not show the session or the state anymore, because we don't need that. So let's think about how we can modify what's being returned right here. How about this? How about we put a message that displays when the appropriate entry in the state changes between the title and the HR. So right here. So we're going to put something right there. But what are we going to put there? I mean, I could, if I wanted to, just write a div and away we go. But instead, let's make it a reusable component. So I'm going to go back to my components folder, and I'll right-click on this and choose New Folder. And I'll create something called UI-components for user interface. So that's a folder. And I'm going to create an alert, and I'm going to take advantage, let me go back to my web browser, of these from Bootstrap. These nice alerts. If something succeeded, if we have a success message, we'll use this one. And if something failed, we'll use this one. And it's really quite straightforward. So I'm going to copy one of these examples and go back to my form components or my UI components, and I'll create a new file in there, and I'll call it alert.js. And this will be very similar to our input components. I'll just make it a constant. I'll make it dumb and pass properties to it. So constant alert, and it receives props, and it's an arrow function. And I'm just going to return, and inside of that, I'll paste the HTML I just copied. And I'll tab it over so it looks better. And I'll make this part a property. So instead of that, I'll say props.alertType. And that will be the class name. And it will be alert-success for the green one, and it'll be alert class errors for danger. This isn't quite right. Let's fix this again. This needs to be like this here. And that's right. And then this, and then close it with that, and get rid of these quotes. And that should fix it. That looks better. Okay, and this, rather than being a simple alert, check it out, we'll just change that to props.alertMessage. Okay, so now we have an alert that we can use once we export it. Export default alert. Okay, so now we have this component that we can use. So let's go back to our editmovie.js. And let's put a few things in here. So right at the bottom of state, let's add an entry to hold our alert information. We'll call it alert, and we'll make it an object, and it will have two entries. type, and I don't want it to show up at all to start with, so I'll add the class dNone as the default. That means the alert will be invisible. And message will be an empty string. Okay. Now, where do we want to set this information? Well, obviously, we want to set it after the form is submitted. So let's go down to the part where we submit the form, which is right here. Right now, we're just doing a console log data, and we need to make that a little more intelligent, okay? So we know if everything succeeded, we're not getting back an error. So I can just check to see if the JSON has a key of error, just by saying if data.error, then we have an error message to display. Else, we don't. So if data.error, what I'm going to do is actually set my state variable for alert. I'll say this.setState, and we'll make alert equal to type alert danger, which gives it the correct class name, and the message will just be whatever we got from the error message. So data.error.message. Otherwise, let's just copy this and paste it in here and make that alert success. And I'll just say my message is going to be changes saved. Now, I want to use this state information for alert with the component we just built in alert.js. So let me go import that. So we'll say import alert from /UI-components/alert. Now it's available. Now we'll go down in my returned HTML after the title and before the HR right here, and we'll pass it at the same level, alert, and I'll put it on the next line so it's a little more readable. We'll say alert type equal this.state.alert.type and alert message equals this.state.alert.message, and then close that tag and format everything. There. Okay, so that's saved. Now if we go back to our web browser and go back to watch movies and make sure we're looking at one, we are looking at /movie/1, /admin/movie/1. I'll open the JavaScript console in case there's any errors, and I have an invalid DOM property class. I made a mistake. So let's go back here and look at alert.js and change class to class name. That's the danger of copying and pasting. Go back, clear the console, reload to make sure everything is valid. It is. Now let's try saving this. Changes saved appeared up here exactly as it should. Okay, so that's some feedback, and that's really good. And I'll leave it as an exercise to you to introduce an error in your backend code so it can send an error back, but it will absolutely show it in the correct format. Okay, so that's a good first step. Now in the next section, or the next lecture, what we'll do is write the necessary code in here, back in our backend window here. We'll put an else statement here that allows us to actually do an update of a movie in the database. And of course that means we'll have to go write the appropriate function in the database routines or movies-db.go, but that should be really straightforward. So we'll take care of that in the next lecture.